No, it was not. Now it is. In accordance with Section 99.865 of the Missouri Revised State Statutes, the City Council of the City of Belton will hold a public hearing at the Belton City Hall Annex 520 Main, City of Belton, 6412 at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, February 14th, to determine if the following tax increment financing plans and redevelopment projects associated with such plans are making satisfactory progress under the proposed time schedules contained within the approved plans for completion of the projects.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. State statute dictates that each TIF is to be reviewed every 5 years. City staff goes above and beyond, and we bring this report to City Council annually. The purpose of the report is for City Council to determine if TIF projects are making satisfactory progress under the proposed time schedule contained in each plan. The City of Belton has 4 active TIFs, and I'll go over each one. A notice of public hearing ran 4 times in the North Cass Herald pursuant to state statute on January 18th, January 25th, February 1st, and February 8th. No action is required of City Council during the public hearing. After the public hearing closes and during the regular meeting, City Council will be asked to make a motion on each individual TIF. And the Y Highway Marketplace is on page 8 of your council packet, and there is also a larger map both on the screen and on page 12 in your council packet. So the Y Highway Marketplace TIF is where the Price Chopper is located, and the construction status of this TIF is in progress. The estimated payoff year is to be determined. The costs there are some costs that still need to be certified because the project is not fully built out yet. The TIF contract construction completion date is May 31st of 2024, so that developer has a year to complete the build out. As you'll recall, David Christie is the new owner of this TIF, excluding the Price Chopper, and since his involvement with the center, it has taken off. He recently brought Twisted Tango, Block, and College Hunks. McBee's Coffee and Car Wash just recently opened, and right now city staff has plans for the other place. It's an American sports grill and pizza, and those plans are under review. That's going to be in Project Area 2, just directly next door to the Arvest Bank. And there is active interest right now in Project Area 3, which is outlined in blue, also on the map. So that is the construction status on the TIF. I'd like to point out that the current assessed valuation is $1.85 million, and the original assessed valuation was $947,000, 866. So the assessed valuation has gone up considerably. Total obligations that are remaining to be paid by the TIF are $6,506,000, $506,730. And I'm here to answer any questions that
Any
council
questions
might have.
on this Y Highway Marketplace TIF? I didn't say anything. Go ahead.
I thought were questions we asked
The
in the motions, not in the public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the next TIF is the Southtown Plaza TIF, and that is better known as Menards. It's on page 9 in your council packet, and the larger map is on page 13 and also on the screen. So the construction project of this TIF is also in progress, and the estimated payoff year is to be determined. Costs are still to be certified. It is also not fully built. They still have the outlots. So Area 2 is the Menards outlots, and I recently spoke with Tom O'Neill. He's the sales and leasing representative for Menards. They have had some interest in the outlots, but there has been no action on the interest. So that's the status on that one. And project area number 3, that is Herman Enterprises, and there's a second retail pad that is to be constructed, and that contract completion date is May 31st of this year, so we will need to amend the TIF to extend the construction timeline, and that will be coming before council in April of this year. So I do believe that with the Encore and Center 301 having 628 new units constructed right across the street essentially, that it will have a positive impact on both the Menards site and the remaining Herman lot. Regarding the financial part, the total obligations that are still left to be paid by the proceeds of the TIF is $9,129,555. I'd like to point out the current assessed valuation is about $7.6 million, and the original assessed valuation was about $1,200. And so I will move on to Y Belton Plaza, which is also better known as Belton Gateway. And it is on page 10 of your council packet with a larger map on page 14 and again on the screen. So like I said, it is the Belton Gateway Shopping Center, and the construction status of this TIF is in progress. The estimated payoff year, again, is to be determined because there are still costs to be certified. The project is not fully built out. So Area 1, which is behind the Hobby Lobby and the Academy Sports, is a hotel site. That construction completion deadline date is December of this year. Areas 2 and 2A, which are in orange and blue, also have a construction completion date of December of this year. Area 3 was never purchased by the developer, and construction completion date for phase 1 of that is December of 2023, and phase 2 also December of 2023. So the developer is going to need to come in and amend this agreement, and we'll do that sometime in November because it needs to be completed by December of 2023. So just a couple of updates on this particular TIF. Old Navy is currently under construction in Project Area 2, and a shell site, a shell is also connected to Old Navy. The developer has a letter of intent for that shell. Also, the former Neaters site has a new tenant, although we have not had contact with the new fast casual restaurant. It looks to be like a company called Beefaroo has signed a lease, and the construction of the exterior remodel is imminent. They're going to come in and do an exterior remodel, and the anticipated opening is probably about 6 to 7 months away. So the total outstanding TIF obligations to be paid to the developer at this time are $19,486,311. And again, I'd like to point out that the current assessed valuation is $8.1 million, just a little over $8.1 million, and the original assessed valuation was $1,000 on the site. And so the final TIF that we'll go over tonight, the Cedar Tree TIF, in your council packet on page 11, larger map on page 15, and on the screen. Construction status of this one is complete, and the junior box market continues to suffer since COVID. One good thing is it's the new home to Plato's Closet, and there has been interest in the junior box with a retailer who would be great. So they're still working on it, and hopefully we'll get some good news with that junior box. But I'd like to point out that the current assessed valuation is $1.4 million, and the original assessed valuation prior to the TIF was $789,130. And there's a total obligations left to be paid to the developer of about $2 million. So that concludes the report.
Anybody from the public want to comment on the public hearing? Again, I'll ask anybody from the public want to comment on the public hearing about the 4 TIFs. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Call regular meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember Lawson. Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Here.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Councilmember Pryan,
Here.
Councilmember Kraft,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Goff, Councilmember Lawson,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
We have a quorum. No personal appearances. Ordinances. A, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2022-66 as amended.
An ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 2, Division 4 of the Code of Ordinances, enacting new guidelines relating to the city's personnel code and adopting the City of Belton personnel policy.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Well, at the last meeting, there was a question about the police being required to be within 25 minutes, and the city manager, Mr. Warren, said he would check into it, but then I didn't see any changes, so I guess it's consistent with the way it was written originally, correct? Well, that's consistent with your thoughts.
Yeah, we did do an internal study on that, and we feel like all are either right there or right on the cusp of 25 minutes. So we feel like it's not worth
Okay, thank you.
changing.
Anybody else? You? Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Clark,
Aye.
Lawson. Aye. Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion passes. B, a motion approving the final reading of Bill 2023-01.
An ordinance of the City of Belton, Missouri, amending Chapter 2, Section 2-219 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Belton, Missouri.
Present. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Pryan,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Lawson. Aye. Powell,
Yes.
Kraft.
Aye.
Motion carries. C, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-05.
An ordinance approving the 14th Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan to approve the 311, 313, and 315 Main Street project as redevelopment project 2023-1 and to authorize tax abatement as described therein.
Present. Second.
This would be the time to open the public hearing.
Hearing first, don't we?
Well, a motion and a second is fine, but you can just open the public hearing at this point.
So we have a motion and a second, and now we're opening the public hearing regarding the proposed 14th Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan for redevelopment project 2023-01 pursuant to section 353.110.32 RSMO. The public hearing is open. Anybody want to speak on motion 2023-05?
Mayor, I'd like to present some information if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, before you this evening, like you stated, is the 14th Amendment, an application for the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan. It's one application for two separate buildings. One is 311 through 313, and the other one is 315 Main, which is Whistle Stop Antiques, and the applicant is present tonight. The Old Town Belton Board unanimously recommended approval on January 4th. Notices of this public hearing were mailed to the affected taxing jurisdictions per state statute. The total project cost for both buildings is $56,200. The application qualifies for level A2 up to 10 years of property tax abatement. The first project, which is 311 and 313 Main, total project cost is $28,200. 64.2% of that project cost is exterior and 35.8% of the project cost is interior. Plans are to repair the stucco finish, remove and replace shutters, glaze and repair windows and window trim, prep and paint the front and back of the building to match the other building at 315, and to replace 4 windows on the back and do some electrical work on the interior. 315 Main is the other part of this application, and its total project cost is $28,000. 76% of this project cost is exterior, and 24% of the project cost is interior, with plans to replace windows in the front of the building, install decorative trim, repair front doors, repair the brick molding, prep and paint the front of the building, repair the breezeway in the back, install new gutters and downspouts, replace the fence maintenance of the brick, and paint the brick on the exterior wall. Also to replace the fence for the air conditioner screening and do some electrical work on the interior. I would like to bring to council's attention that this application fee in the amount of $250 was paid for by the Belton Chamber of Commerce's Community Foundation, whose mission is to positively and collaboratively work toward a bright future for Belton through beautification and community improvements. The foundation board approved $4,000 to be spent on 16 $250 application fees for this program, and they will cover the cost for the next 15 $250 application fees in an effort to spur the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan even more.
You want to come up and speak? You don't have to. I'm just saying if you want to, you feel free.
I don't know anything that I can add to what Carolyn just said. But thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to talk about this public hearing? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. We're back to the motion. Any discussion from council on the motion?
I just have one question, Carolyn.
Good.
Have any of the other 13 been completed yet?
We do have 3 that have been completed. I don't have the project numbers or addresses.
No, that's okay.
But
Right.
3 have officially been completed, yes.
Is there an official, I mean, it's pretty official to kick things off. Is there official completion thing, or they just write you a note and say, we're done?
Well, what they do is they submit their receipts for the project costs, and we make sure that they completed everything that
Okay.
was approved. And then once that happens, then we consider the project complete.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, I move for a second reading.
We have a motion for a second reading on Bill 2023-05.
I second for the second.
We have a motion and a second for the second reading. Any discussion on the motion for a second reading?
Could we get a reason for the motion for the second reading?
Did I hear what she said?
She wants
The
to know
reason.
why we want to do it. I think that we've been doing second readings on these just to get them done,
Yeah, expedite it for the people.
so.
No problem. Just wanted to check. Thank you.
Anybody else? Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2023-05.
An ordinance approving the 14th Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan to approve the 311, 313, and 315 Main Street project as redevelopment project 2023-1 and to authorize tax abatement as described therein.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Lawson? Aye. Powell?
Yes.
Richardson?
Aye.
Pryan?
Yes.
Clark?
Aye.
Kraft?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye, motion carries. D, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-06.
An ordinance amending Appendix B traffic schedules, Table 6, no parking zones, as referenced in Chapter 13, Section 13-333 in the Code of Ordinances of the City of Belton, Missouri, to establish certain no parking zones.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, information?
Basically, what we're doing here is we're adding no parking for the Traditions area and for Commercial Street. What's unique about what we're doing is we're actually removing the whole table, adding those streets to it, and then putting the whole table back. The reason we're doing that is if you look underneath that ordinance in the Code of Ordinances book or online, you'll see a giant paragraph that lists probably 20 different ordinances that were used to put all those different lines into that ordinance. So now there'll just be one ordinance that enacts all the no parking. So if you wonder where the no parking ordinance is, you just find this one ordinance. It's much easier than trying to go back 20 years or 30 years in history to find every ordinance that was passed. And that's what we're enacting today.
So you're saying all of these are already, except for commercial and Traditions, are already in the ordinances?
Correct. They're already
Okay.
currently in the ordinance. All we're adding is 3, but by removing the whole table and adding it back,
All right.
it eliminates the research.
Yeah, this is news to me, but this is kind of related because I never realized that Cambridge Road from Prospect to Peculiar was no parking. Does this have any, apparently it doesn't have any effect on the parents lining up for getting into Cambridge School and on both sides of the road?
That's not parking technically, I wouldn't think. Wouldn't that be standing?
Well, they stand for about 20 minutes.
Correct. And and I've turned that over to our police department to look into because they have rerouted some of the other schools on how to handle where to park.
Yeah, because there's a lot of side streets there, but I've noticed that, I mean, it's at the top of a hill. So you come up the hill and you say, well, I don't want to wait in line. And so you go out onto the middle stripe. And if another car is coming from the opposite way, supposedly both of them only at 15 miles an hour, but it's still a surprise.
And that's one of the things we've had that at several schools in the city. And so we're trying to work through that issue and figure out where they should line up better.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. E, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-07.
An ordinance approving an agreement for fire service assistance between the City of Belton Fire Department and Western Cass Fire Protection District.
Present.
We have a motion
Second?
and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Are we still struggling with them?
Describe struggling.
Arguing, suits?
I'm not arguing
we've-
anything. They are having difficulties within their board, for sure. I negotiated a different mutual aid contract that included a performance clause. That one actually never got put onto the agenda, though. What this one is a new one to present to them for now. That's a strictly pay per call. If they call us, then this would have a charge that applies to each of those calls, depending on the apparatus we send.
So they have not agreed to this yet, is what you're saying?
They have not. Hasn't been presented to them yet.
Should we table this until they agree to it?
I don't know that they're, if you don't mind me interjecting
Oh,
here.
go ahead.
I don't know that they're going to agree to it necessarily. I think that what this is essentially, this is a show of you guys, of the council saying, all right, here's our position on this. As it's presented, it's not so much a mutual aid, it's more of a services contract where if they need our service, they're going to pay for the service and ask for the service. And so this is us saying, yeah, if you want it, this is the way it's going to be. Otherwise, we're not going to respond. So if you guys don't want us to handle it like that, then we need to not.
I guess I just don't want to keep doing this because we went down there, we negotiated a different contract based on this and they changed it. I mean, if we're gonna sit here and keep changing it, no, I don't wanna do that, but if this is, here's our position, here's what we're gonna do, then I'm fine, but it's just, now is Dolan in on this too, or West Dolan, whichever what the other one was?
So to clarify, I did present the last one to them. They didn't change it. They adopted it. We just never presented it here,
Okay,
and it got changed here. Dolan was in 100% agreement, and they were going to offer the same service agreement / mutual aid that we were offering at the time. On this particular one, I'm not sure what Dolan's going to do. We haven't discussed that, if it were to pass.
I'm fine in presenting something, here's our position, but I just wanna make sure we're not, next month, we're changing all this stuff because we negotiated something completely different.
Well, there's been a number of times where we try to negotiate and say, okay, here's something, and then we couldn't get anything done on their end. So this is kind of an attempt on our side to say, here's something we're willing to do since we don't have any formal agreement.
Okay, thank you.
I would actually hope that we do renegotiate it at some point. I mean, I will be looking for direction because I'm not sure. I think I need to know the direction of the council as a whole because it's a complicated situation for me. If we do this and we present this as performance, do they have to get to a certain point where we'll consider a normal mutual aid agreement? And the other complication that I have with it is that regardless of what we do here with this, I have a 100% obligation to send an ambulance every time, no matter what, because it's our ambulance area. And so that would include for things like structure fires or something that's a large-scale incident that needs an EMS service besides just EMS calls. So that still puts my folks on scene that could be put into awkward situations as trained personnel carrying gear that can do things that might not. And for me, that seems to be a duty to act. And I feel like if we're telling them not to act, that it puts us in some liability.
Well, I guess my whole thing goes back to where we were the fire department for the last, I don't know if it was a year and a half, or how long that was, where they didn't have anything. And I don't want to get back in that position where we're doing all their work and putting our guys at risk and gals at risk and
I would agree with that. That's why when I negotiated, that's the performance clause that said they had to respond to 90% of their calls with at least 2 firefighters on the scene within 15 minutes. Otherwise, we were going to call that them not handling their own calls, and automatically charges applied again. And then if they stayed below that threshold for more than 3 months out of the year, then it would trigger an automatic 60-day cancellation again of the contract so that we could negotiate something more suitable for the city of Belton as far as being their complete coverage.
Go ahead.
Well, I can't take complete credit for this because I got several emails from a person that lives in the district, and they are basically much better with this than they were with the previous one. But they still pointed out that there's nothing in there that points out who's the incident commander. So, I mean, it says that you're in charge of our guys or our people, but it doesn't say who's in charge of the whole thing. Second, it doesn't mention any payment terms or schedules. I mean, there's a list of what they should pay for who shows up, but it doesn't say they have 6 months to pay back, 2 weeks, whatever. And this is a legal thing, which I looked up. It looks like it should be in there. In referencing this motion, it talks about 320.090, but they suggest that 321.622, which is specific to responding to emergencies beyond corporate boundaries, also be referenced in the motion. And then finally, and again, this is no slap to John, but they ask, did the lawyer look at this? So that's a question for Patrick.
Yes, I did review,
Okay.
and this does track with pretty much every other mutual aid / services agreement that the city does have. The statute cited is the correct statute because that is the statute regarding agreements between municipalities and fire protection districts for providing services or mutual aid to each other.
Right, but
Well-
the 622, referencing Dave's thing, talks about liability too.
And
Which-
that statute only is directed at fire protection districts responding outside of their boundaries, not municipalities responding outside of their boundaries.
Okay. And so I would suggest there be something in there about incident commander. I mean, I think
That's typically, that's not actually in any mutual aid agreement we have. Usually it's understood that whoever is receiving, they're the receiver, it's their fire, their call, they're in command.
okay,
It's
so,
not inserted into,
Okay. All right, so-
regularly into a mutual aid agreement.
but do they have anybody qualified to be an incident commander and they're in West Cass?
I don't know all their qualifications. They're training, but historically, see, we have responded down there for a long time. The 25 years I've been here, we've responded down there.
Uh-huh.
And it has been a consistent problem through the years of ups and downs, both in staffing and in training and capabilities. So it isn't anything new, and that is why we send supervisors with our folks to observe what's going on and/or when needed, give input to see if they'll take the input. But most of all, to look out for the well-being of our folks to decide whether they need to be there or not.
But bottom line, if a Western Cass incident commander required part of your team to go into something that you felt or your commander on the site felt was unsafe, the Belton commander could overrule the incident commander and say, no, our guys aren't going to do that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't know if that answered everything. There were a lot of questions there, but.
Well, the only other one was about payment terms and schedules. I'm not,
Well, it was actually
to-
included. I guess for clarification, I'm not sure which agreement, because there's actually been about 3 different ones, and the newest one they don't even have. They've never seen it.
well, now I'm talking about the one that we got with this, with the agenda, so.
Yeah, there's a payment. Annex A is in there. There's a payment schedule.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said schedule, the terms, again, do they pay the next week, do they pay the next month, do they pay the next year? Are we
Yeah,
gonna have
actually,
to?
that was in the old one. I took the old one and revamped it. So I did have that specifically in the other one. So that is something we
Okay.
can add, and it's probably wise to add some kind of
Right.
terms like that.
Okay, thank you.
Brett?
No,
Oh, I thought you had. I've struggled with this, and I hope someday that we can, and it may be tonight, but I hope someday that we can come to an agreement with them. I just feel at this time I can't support this due to everything that's going on with their district, and lawsuits and stuff is going on. So I'm opposed to this at this time. Not saying that we can't come to a conclusion after some lawsuits are settled or whatever, but I'm opposed to this at this time. Just for you guys to know. So, go ahead.
So if we don't adopt it because there's a potential better solution down the line when they kind of straighten out their stuff, what happens in the meantime?
That's the struggle. The struggle right now is that
It's a bad struggle. It takes away from what the citizens of Belton are paying, and supporting another district that in the past has not wanted to pay their fair share. And to me, that was a big problem even when I was a fire chief. And I tried to do something about it then, but obviously I couldn't get that done then. I just think that with everything going on with their district, and they got an election coming up, and it could be a holding board in 2 months, and we may be back at this, I think we should just wait until their lawsuits are settled and their election is passed, and then look at it then. So,
So for that 2 months, would the agreement be that we respond EMS only?
That's the question I have. I mean, again, EMS, we're obligated. We have to. We have no choice. But I guess I'm looking for that clarification too. As the fire chief, am I to say absolutely not if we have a request for some other apparatus for some other reason?
Patrick?
This is, I think, a decision for the council to make and providing direction to Chief Sapp regarding what is the position of the city council as to non-formal agreed aid that could be rendered by Belton Fire.
For a couple things, thing number one, I feel like, yes, we do not currently have a contract for service in place. I feel like the contract for service or mutual aid is just a clarifying document that says you will do this. I don't feel like not having it doesn't mean we don't go. And to express, again, my biggest frustration with this decision-making is I know that it's highly unlikely, but if my ambulance shows up first or second on the scene and they know that there's a life in danger, am I supposed to give them the orders that says we're not doing mutual aid? You can't put on your fire gear that we supply you with, your air pack that we give you, and the training that we give you to go save that life. And that's a really, really difficult thing to tell them. And again, I think that I'm obligated to stop at a wreck in an ambulance if I don't have a patient, no matter where I'm at. And I don't find this any different, to be honest with you.
I'd just like to point out that the status quo right now is that we will respond and we will do what we can to help, even though we don't have an agreement. The reason this keeps coming back is because we'd like at some point to have some formality to what our policy is coming from the council to direct us, because just responding and doing the best we can, whether they're there or not, and working with them if necessary, without an agreement, I'm concerned in what that holds us to as far as liability is concerned, and so there's just a lot of issues there. There's no clear-cut, easy answer to this one.
I would like to also add that since October 1st, when they went live with their firefighters, they haven't called us once for mutual aid for anything. They haven't had any structure fires, but you would expect to be called in a structure fire. But they've had multiple calls that I've listened to, and they haven't called anybody for mutual aid so far. They've handled 100% of their calls.
I guess my question of when are you gonna present this? And, I mean, we have 2 more weeks. If we do the first read tonight, in 2 weeks, we can either say yes or no again. So I'm just,
Well, I guess it would depend on if it actually is passed by the council tonight. They have a meeting tomorrow night. I'm not sure I can get on their agenda tomorrow night, so it'd be 2 more weeks before I got into them.
But you said you took part of this out that you want in there about them showing up?
Well, this current one isn't really a true, what I call a mutual aid one. This was totally a service agreement.
Okay.
That they'll call us and we'll go, but they'll pay.
Go ahead.
But you're gonna add the payment term or whatever?
Yeah, we could either make a motion for me to add terms of payment timing, and I have one other, actually, if we're going to adopt this, I have one other error that I need to have somebody make a motion to fix as well, but yes.
So if we respond now without an agreement, what's the liability issues for us?
Again, from a liability perspective, asking forward-looking questions on liability and fires is something that you can't get an answer for, just period, because there's too many fact patterns that could come into play. Like, what is the liability for anything at any point?
To be clear, staff is presenting this as a possible solution. It's not that we're saying we want this. This is to us the way to do it. We just, again, the whole point of this was to get some feedback from council on what our position should be, since there's no easy way out of this.
Is there a way to position this as like a stopgap measure that we have to revisit it after the election? That this will serve for whatever, 90 days?
We could. I mean, it's written into it that it can be voided anyway with a 60-day notice. Or if either party wants to adjust it, we can also do that.
Just how do we incentivize them to work with us on something more permanent? I don't envy the position you're in. I appreciate your work on this.
I guess I'm not sure what to tell them what success is for them. That's what I guess I'm looking for too.
Angela has a
Go ahead,
question.
Angela.
I think
Go ahead.
part of my concern with this is that with them going to court, I believe in early March, if that's what I saw, I don't want either side to be able to say, well, Belton's decision sides with us. I want us to be able to stay out of it. That's why I was glad that it was taken off the agenda prior, because I don't feel like we should be getting involved with that disagreement. But I'm also conflicted because I absolutely don't want to risk someone's life, even though it's not, a Belton citizen. I still obviously care about their area as well. So I think that's kind of where I'm conflicted. If there's any information that can help me with that portion.
I would just note that in litigation, anything that you do will be a part of it. Doing something, not doing something, tabling something, approving something will be utilized by whichever party it benefits.
And yeah, not making a decision is still making a decision that someone can take as, well, that's what I wanted them to do. So
I don't have a problem moving this forward because we got 2 more weeks to change it or do something different if we just deem it necessary. The board down there seems to be a mess, and I don't know if the April election is going to cure that, but you never know how people vote. But I feel sorry for the residents of that area is who I feel sorry for, and I don't want to put us as a city in a position where we're going back to where we were before. But like you said, they haven't called us since October. Maybe they see this, they'll never call us. So
That may be, and again, there is no time soon that if tonight we were voting on a mutual aid contract, I would not recommend a mutual aid contract without some kind of clause that says you're going to perform to this level, and if you don't, it's automatically you're paying us. It's just, it's not just the current board, it's just been that up and down ever since they've existed.
Go ahead.
The figures that you have for the services, are those customary? Because they seem low to me.
The
so-
pricing,
Yeah.
some of them were just made up. Most of them I used the FEMA guidelines that are kind of not exactly for this particular thing. It's more for disaster things, but I kind of looked at those guidelines to make these up.
They just seem a little low.
did you say we need to amend this?
Well, if we're going to pass this one, there's 2 amendments that need to be made. One is that there's a clause entered for timing of issuing invoices and receiving payments that I apparently omitted accidentally. And the other one is on the Annex A. For the first bullet point for pricing, it says $75 for an EMS first response. Well, that was when they had nobody. EMS, again, is our responsibility. So if we choose to send somebody, it's not really because they called us. It's because we think that we might need the trained resources that we have for that particular call. So I don't think that a cost really should apply to that.
Mr. Attorney, can we just say we're going to amend?
If the city council is interested, a motion amending Bill 2023-07 by adding in a 60-day period for receipt of payment for services provided and deleting the provision from Annex A stating a cost for EMS services would be in order.
I make that motion.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to amend the motion. Any discussion on the motion to amend? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries to amend.
Can I,
We're back to the motion as amended.
can I go?
Go ahead.
It just seems, the pricing for a water supply apparatus is $150. That just seems low to me.
Part of the reason is it's got less personnel, and the only job it's doing is carrying water to the scene.
Yeah.
The other apparatus, they're going to have 3 personnel. They're going to be using all their equipment on the trucks, not all of it, but actually using their fire protection equipment and tools and such as that.
Yeah, well, I thought that was even low too, but.
Anybody else?
Actually, one more.
Go ahead.
If he can't get on the agenda tomorrow, that means he can't even get on the agenda till after our next meeting. So it won't be 2 weeks, it'll be
We
actually,
can table it
Table it till they,
if we have to.
table that meeting.
Yeah.
anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Motion carries.
No.
Motion carries.
Councilmember Kraft, can you clarify your vote, please?
I thought it was no.
Yes, my vote was no.
Thank you.
F, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-08.
An ordinance authorizing acceptance of an allocation of funds and execution of a grant agreement with the Missouri Department of Public Safety for the Emergency Management Performance Grant, mini grant, for a total award amount of $26,163.46.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, information that we don't have? Go ahead.
Could you explain a little bit more?
We did a assessment over the last 2 years in regards to the emergency storm siren system, and we found what we thought was a weakness, and that weakness was high blue. The closest siren was Kentucky Trail, and we felt like we could address that with another modular siren. In talking to the Parks Department, I think if you recall our presentation from last year, we added a voice-activated feature that warns people that are outside that there's impending weather and to seek shelter. And so this modular siren will also have that feature right there at Wallace Park, and then it will go into siren mode and then fill in that coverage area. And so this was a grant that we got, and they drop the awards really fast on us and then ask for a really fast turnaround. That's why it's been brought here first.
Any other discussion?
So they can hear the siren, but they can't hear the voice. Is that?
They will get the voice first, and then the siren will activate. And we've tested the voice part of it, and it will be really loud and it'll be articulable. We've tested those features.
But currently, they just hear the siren at High Blue.
There is no siren.
Don't
at
hear
High-
any siren there.
They hear a distant siren at Kentucky Trail. So this will actually make that entire area louder.
Go ahead.
Would it be beneficial to have a second read on this tonight?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second reading.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion on the motion for a second reading? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2023-08.
An ordinance authorizing acceptance of an allocation of funds and execution of a grant agreement with the Missouri Department of Public Safety for the Emergency Management Performance Grant, mini grant, for a total award amount of $26,163.46.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Lawson,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes?
Richardson,
Aye.
Pryan,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Mayor Larky.
Aye. Motion carries. Resolution, motion approving resolution R 23-06.
A resolution approving the purchase of 4 antennas and associated software with installation to collect water meter readings for billing purposes from sole source provider Midwest Meter, Inc. in the not-to-exceed amount of $96,500.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. If you got
So-
anything.
Yeah, I just want to run through this ordinance, make sure, a resolution to make sure everyone's aware of what we're doing. Is that currently we have a truck that drives around with little antenna on the back, you've probably seen it, that captures the meter reading information. Our goal is to place 4 antennas and eventually a 5th one where we will be able to read these remotely. And so these antennas will go, the meters themselves will transmit a signal to these antennas, which will transmit it back to City Hall, and we'll have a constant reading of meters. And so this is a much improved system. Now, it's not a system where you can sit there and just watch your meter and just click all day long. I know some people have done that. You'll be roughly about 15 minutes behind. But what it'll allow you to do is that if someone is running water and they're not home, it can send alerts to them telling them, hey, do you know that you have water running in your house? You could be on vacation, and there can be an alert that comes on that eventually tells you, hey, there's water running at your home. So that's what this one does. It sets it up. We don't have to drive around town, and we can start reading them. Now, there are some residents that, because of the topography of Belton, that will not be able to have line of sight from their meter to the tower. So we'll actually install cellular readers at that point, and they just go through the cellular system, and we'll get their readings that way. But everyone will be read remotely over the next, well, I'd say next year, as we get this all implemented, get all the registries and the meters changed and make that work. There's future technology that we're looking at, and that includes being able to turn the meters on and off remotely. So if someone does call in and say, hey, I can see my meters moving and I'm getting these calls, we can actually, without having to drive out, eventually get to the point where we can start turning meters on and off from City Hall and not actually have to go out there. But that's the next layer of technology beyond this. Right now, we're just trying to get the antennas out there so we can read them, and that's what this one is. Included in it, you'll notice that it's sole source to Badger meter, because that's all we have is Badger meters. So we're not going to switch vendors at this point because we have to switch all the meters that we have. So this is the meters we've used for a long time, just continuing that process to the next step. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
I kind of have a question. I had a recent resident issue kind of along these lines, and this seems like an improvement that would have saved some work. She emailed us really upset about water rates. This is a common thing we hear, and says we don't have any issues, we don't have a leak. Why is it always so high? So utilities staff put an hourly reader at her location. I don't understand how it works, but then we had hourly data, and it tracked with maybe a toilet flapper being open for hours overnight. So will these 4 antennas help the rest of our meters function with that kind of timely data?
That's correct.
That will be really helpful when folks, want to know why their water bills are so high and they swear they only do laundry once a week. You can look at the data and hopefully find some stuff like that. So I think that's an improvement. Thanks.
Will the citizens be able to log in and look?
Yes, once we get all the software worked out, and it's going to take a little bit to do that because we have to upgrade some of our software, then they'll be able to look at it themselves.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
so they'll be able to track it themselves and.
Absolutely. We should be able to set it up in the future to have alarms too. So if something's going on, like that flapper is going on in the middle of the night, you can get an alarm in the middle of the night. You can set it up. If you give us your right phone number, we can tell you, and you'll get text in the middle of the night saying, by the way, you're running water.
So the vacation timing feature, the resident would have to go on and say, I'm going to be out of my home from this time to this time to get those alerts. How else would we know, It's like the software interface for the resident is going to be important for this.
Correct. And I haven't got there yet, but we'll get there.
All right.
Anybody else?
Is there an accuracy rate? Is it 100%?
Well, it's only going to be, the read is going to be just fine. It's just the only thing will be the transmission through the antenna and back. But other than that, it should read exactly what the meter reads.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motions. A, motion determining.
May I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
A motion determining the redevelopment project described in the Y Highway Marketplace TIF plan and submitted to the Belton City Council at the public hearing held on February 14, 2023, is making satisfactory progress under the proposed time schedule contained within the approved plans for completion of such project.
I make a motion that it is making satisfactory progress.
Second.
Just for note, for all city council members, all of the motions are stated in the affirmative. So if you do not believe that it is making satisfactory progress, you just have to not vote yes on the motion.
I thought a couple of years ago, we had to make sure we stated it was satisfactory or non-satisfactory in our motion.
It was changed this year based on Carolyn and I's discussion at the end of last year's meeting.
So I got a question on the first one. The assessed valuation on that is that because when Christie Development took it over, is that what it's going off of? Or, because it's like $870 or $974,000, and I know that land wasn't assessed at that dollar amount when that building was built 15 years ago, whatever it's been. Because like Menard's land was $1,300.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you, and I will have to check on that.
Okay, I just didn't know if that's when Christie took it over
I-
compared to,
I believe that is probably the case.
okay.
I got a question the other way on the assessed valuations. Why are two of them so low and the other two are so high? Because they seem relatively the same.
Well, but Cedar Tree was already there, so it was already assessed at a higher value. The other one was just bare land.
No, I meant current, not original.
Oh.
Why is Price Chopper assessed valuation at 1.8 million and Menards is almost 8 million? And then the same with why Belton Plaza at 8 million and Cedar Tree at 1.5 million.
I received this information from Nicole Moody. She's the deputy assessor at Cass County. So that's the information that I received from the county.
It just seems like
can-
Cedar Tree seems so much less than why Belton Plaza. Maybe something we ought to look at.
Yeah, I'm happy to check into that and get back with you.
Well, yeah, when you talk about all the buildings there, because I think you got Arvest, and of course it's probably not updated because I think McBee's is also in that TIF.
Yeah,
Oh.
so that's something we probably should look at because they seem way off to me.
Yep,
So,
I'll do that.
I didn't think about that one.
anybody else on motion A?
I make a comment, just, I think, I've been here for 4 years now doing this, and I think, since Christie Development's taken over, it definitely has come a long ways. I wish Popeye was actually in that TIF too, but they're not, but I think there's a lot of good stuff going on with this than there was 2 years ago, so definitely appreciate them moving forward with it.
There's a quick question. You said on a couple of these that the construction date would have to be changed. Is this one of them?
No, this particular TIF contract construction completion date is May 31st of 2024, so he's got a year.
But he's got a year to do everything that's empty out there?
Correct.
Okay.
Which would be phase 3 and 2. Part of 2, the 2 that's connected to the inline shops.
Okay.
And you said the other place is in review with planning and zoning?
Correct.
Anybody else? So we vote.
You vote yes if you believe it is making satisfactory progress. You vote no if you believe it is not making satisfactory progress.
Everybody understand that?
Yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry. Anybody that doesn't think it's making satisfactory performance? Motion carries.
I will amend my previous guidance. Vote in the affirmative if you believe it is making satisfactory progress. Vote in the negative if you believe it is not making satisfactory progress.
Motion B.
A motion determining the redevelopment project described in the Southtown Plaza TIF plan and submitted to the Belton City Council at the public hearing held on February 14th, 2023, is making satisfactory progress under the proposed time schedule contained within the approved plans for completion of such project.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? You have anything more, Carolyn?
Just what I already reported. I'm happy to answer questions.
Do we, I mean, I didn't know we had that much money involved in this one. I mean, every year we ask, can we do something to move Menards forward? But every year we said we're going to try, and every year it seems like nothing goes on there. I mean, has he ever come back in town?
He did come back before, he came before council last year and provided council with an update, and at that time, city council did extend the construction timeline to May of 2024, May 31st of 2024. So
So what happens if we don't extend it again?
if we don't extend it again, the city will not get paid the $4.3 million, and the developer won't get paid either. So it's in the city's best interest to amend the TIF and collect our money.
I mean, I think it's satisfactory making money to pay off the debt. It's nice land there. You hope you get some more stuff in there.
I guess to add to that question, if, 23-year tip, if it doesn't get paid off by then?
Yes, it's done. If it doesn't get paid off by then the developer loses whatever money they were still owed, as does the city.
Should we send him pictures of Encore and Center 301, let them know there's 650 units are going to be?
I have already done that.
Okay.
And I sent him a copy of the most recent annual report and have had a phone conversation with him as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
it is not that unusual for development around Menards developments to take a while. And I'm not saying why,
No,
I'm
but
just
I
saying
know
that's
Well, I
not
see it in
unusual.
some areas where it's going gangbusters, and other areas it looks just like ours, and it's like, don't understand. St. Joe finally took off after about 10 years.
Yeah, it took Sedalia quite a bit of time before they started getting some build out around theirs as well.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Didn't last year didn't he report that he didn't have any interest? But then you just said earlier that he's had some interest?
He has had some interest since the last time he came before council.
Okay.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I did that wrong. All in affirmative.
Yes.
Yes.
Ayes affirmative, so.
Everybody in the non-affirmative. Motion carries. C, motion.
A motion determining the redevelopment project described in the Y Belton Plaza TIF plan and submitted to the Belton City Council at the public hearing held on February 14th, 2023, is making satisfactory progress under the proposed time schedule contained within the approved plans for completion of such project.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can I ask you to clarify, who did you say was going in the Old Neaters?
Former Neaters is a restaurant called Beefaroo.
Beefaroo.
Correct.
Looks pretty good. The menu looks pretty good.
Found them online.
The menu looks pretty
They're
good.
good. Rockford, Illinois.
They're out of Illinois. Looks like a fast casual burger joint. Never heard of it. It's a
Been
fun
around
name.
for like 50 years or so, too.
They just sold their franchise rights like last year.
I believe they recently announced a beefer going in on the Kansas side as well over in the Overland Park area.
We're
think there's
we're
something-
first again.
I think there's something like Kansas City market was like the second market or the first market they're going into, so.
Anybody else?
Well, the good thing is I don't,
Motion C.
I mean, my comment would be, when you look at the dollars coming in and what is owed in a year's left, I don't think it's making the money back, but, that's all on a developer, not us, so, he's gotta add, and I think having Old Navy come in there and Beefaroo, I think he's gonna get there. I just, when I look at the dollar signs coming in to pay it off, but it's all his money, so. Now, he has a second structure there, is there, he has a structure, it's nothing framed next to Old Navy, is that still in limbo?
It is in limbo. He does have an LOI. There are some legal matters that they are trying to work out.
Okay. And I'm assuming you showed David Christie's those apartment complexes across the street for restaurants?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Area 1, Lot 5, hotel construction, when we say hotel, is that something they've told us they're gonna have, or something that's specified in the TIF that it has to be a hotel, or what?
When the TIF plan was approved, the proposed, the use for that particular lot was slated to be a hotel.
Okay. So if something great came in and wanted to use that land, can the TIF be amended, or?
It absolutely can.
Okay.
Do they have an interest in a hotel there? I mean, is there any hotel that's interested?
Not to my knowledge.
Guess if we had some sports things, it might.
Anybody else? All in favor? Or, gosh, dang it, wait a minute, stop.
Nope, that was a fine motion that was a fine statement that you made there, Mr. Mayor.
Everybody in the affirmative.
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody in the non-affirmative. Motion carries. I got one more. I'm gonna do it right too. Motion D.
Motion determining the redevelopment project described in the Cedar Tree TIF plan and submitted to the Belton City Council at the public hearing held on February 14th, 2023, is making satisfactory progress under the proposed time schedule contained within the approved plans for completion of such project.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on motion D? Go ahead.
Potential future development, did you say they had some interest, or you're just talking about the bigger storefront where the library used to be?
So yes, in addition to Plato's Closet, obviously this junior box has sat vacant to the surprise of, I think, everybody, because it's such a great location. But there has been recent interest in a retailer that staff would be supportive of. And, but there are some issues that have slowed down those discussions. But I do not think it's necessarily a dead deal, hoping that it can be resurrected. So there is some hope for that junior box.
Is it?
I haven't been over there, but Plato's Closet went into the old liquor store?
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Didn't Inky's Fine Jewelry, didn't he retire?
Yes.
So is it still a thing, or did somebody else kind
You
of
can
take it
go in
over?
the jewelry business if you want to.
No, I don't want to.
I don't believe we've received a business license application
Okay.
for that location.
Thank you.
All right, get this one right.
I'm going to. I'm waiting to see if anybody else wants to talk.
Did you write it down correctly?
Everybody in the affirmative.
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody in the non-affirmative. Motion carries. I did it. It only took me 4 times, but I got it. Consent agenda. One motion non-debatable to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're flying now. City managers report. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. My bad. City council liaison reports.
Yeah.
A little tired.
Some updates or dates to mark for parks events. This Saturday, the 18th, is the family dance at Memorial Station. I'm not sure if you can still register for that or if it's sold out, but check out the parks website or on their Facebook. February 24th, there's a paint party for kids. There's also spring sports signups right now, so T-ball and the like. I think it's still early registration, so you get a little bit cheaper. And then April 1st is the Easter egg hunt at Memorial Park. I'll keep shouting out what a great Easter egg hunt this is. I was not prepared for how many people turn out. I took my kid last year for the first time. It was really great. So even if you don't have little ones, look for eggs. If you just want to see a mass of Belton kids screaming and having the best time, check out the Easter egg hunt. It's very well done. And that's parks.
I was informed that you have to go put all the eggs out.
My daughter used to do that.
They stuff eggs for 6 weeks, I believe. I don't know how they get them covering all the fields. I mean, it is a endeavor. But no, I did not help last year.
Anybody else?
The TDD meeting for tomorrow is canceled because we're going to the parade. And, but it will be postponed only 1 week, so it'll be a week from Wednesday if you're going to the parade, sure. But anyway, the TDD will be, if you're planning on going, won't be for another week. Sorry for the disappointment. And the Codes Enforcement Advisory Council has a meeting a week from Thursday, 9 days from now at 6 p.m. As I understand it from Matt, it will be, if the public can attend, but there won't be public input at that meeting. So, thank you.
Any council communication? Go ahead.
I got to go to the Chamber of Commerce today in the Training and Technical Center of Cass County. So I got to go there a couple months ago, and they've had improvements because they've had like TVs, and so it was a good thing to go see the center that we're going to have where people can go and learn. And local businesses, I found out today, if you have some technical training that you need your employees to go to, they can set that up and help you there also, not just students. So, but it's actually local businesses can use that center also. So maybe someday in a work session we can have a little update on how it works and how people can get that. But very informative today. I had, I think, 8 different speakers from the people that are associated with that center talk. So I learned a lot today. It was good.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I guess my question is, is there anybody within Belton staff that is following the Google and AT&T things going on? I think they're doing a fairly good job of throwing some seed down, but they're leaving the sidewalks in miserable shape. I mean, if you tried to walk down the sidewalk from Colburn to the schools on Mill, I mean, you practically have to walk out in the street because there's mud left for several days. There's cones pushed over. There's all that orange tape, or orange netting, which is supposed to keep people from falling in holes, but it really just instead impedes pedestrians. So I don't know if it's Public Works or if it's development or building inspectors or what, but and the second thing is, I've noticed that there's at least Google Fiber on West Cambridge, but I don't see anything on East Cambridge. Is somebody following and making sure they're covering the whole town? I mean, there's nothing, as far as I know, when I was in there a few days ago, there's nothing in Crown Mobile Park. There's nothing in any mobile park that I know of, so or mobile home park. So
I don't think they've been down West Cambridge yet either. There was AT&T fiber that came down there the first time.
I think I saw it right before you get to Cleveland, but I may be wrong. It might have been AT&T.
So just to answer your second question first, under Missouri law, cities are not allowed to require telecommunications companies or fiber companies like Google Fiber to provide services to the entire city when we grant them access to the right-of-way. That is something that was specifically put into Missouri law by the fiber and telecommunications companies. So they will kind of, if it matches their business model, will pick and choose what areas see the service.
Well, on that note, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Spectrum, I mean, aren't they supposed to do the whole city?
Spectrum has a different form of agreement. We are
They don't do the
specifically
whole
not
city.
we are specifically not allowed to require a franchise agreement, which a franchise agreement is what typically gives you the authority to mandate that they provide their service or their utility to the entirety of the city. That is why when we do Google Fiber agreements, they are either license agreements or right-of-way use agreements, because that is all we can require of them. That is part of the Public Rights-of-Way law and additionally the Telecommunications Infrastructure Deployment Act.
Okay, except for the second one that you just referenced, then does it have to do with other utilities like phone, like gas, like
Again,
electric-
those all are under franchise agreements. They do not have that same rule under Missouri.
Oh, okay, it's just the
That-
cable companies.
Well, not even the cable companies, just strictly the fiber companies.
Fiber companies, okay. Well, then, going back to my first question, I saw Greg taking notes, but I'm not saying that you're responsible. I mean, it's.
So we issue right-of-way permits and excavation permits to Google and AT&T and any other fiber companies that come to town.
Okay.
And so we do monitor their work. We constantly call them. It's a daily, one person we have assigned to it every single day. That's all he does, is
Okay.
deal with those two people and where they're at. And so what we do is a lot of them have so many permits, and then we stop them. They got to clean up and get everything fixed before they can move on. And so right now, AT&T has stopped. They cannot do any additional work until they clean up all and everything that they have.
Okay.
There's also a second portion that once the fiber lines are installed, then they come back and do service connections. And so they'll go and pull 20 to 40 to 50 permits a day to then dig a new hole in people's yards to then do a service line to their house. So we're watching them install the fiber at many locations and then go back and have to issue permits for every individual house that desires service. So yes, we are all over the place trying to deal with every hole and every place that they're at.
So how long do you think, is there any requirement or any suggested time from the time that a box goes in to the time that, for the time that a wire goes across somebody's yard and across the sidewalk to the ditch or to the curb?
How quickly they do the work?
Okay, so I thought you said two things. They come in and they put in the service, and then they do an individual connection to somebody's house. And I've seen several wires, a lot of wires, running to people's houses from those boxes. Do they have a week to come back and bury it, or do they have to wait till the ground thaws, or?
No, so once they make the connection at the right of way and they take that line across somebody's house for service,
Yeah.
they're off our right of way. So we don't have a permit for that. So that's another contractor that they hire who goes and then they dig a hole and they put that wire into the yard of the person who's there.
Okay.
And so that takes, that's up to the person who's requesting the service, dealing with AT&T Direct to get that
Oh, okay,
completed.
so that's the homeowners.
That's the
deal.
homeowner's
Okay.
responsibility.
Okay, thank you.
Brett?
From the Google box, whatever they call it, up to my house, buried and hooked up an hour.
Okay, so I don't understand why there's wires going into people's houses. I don't think the homeowners themselves made those connections.
Well, I don't know, but they buried it, they,
Put the box in and,
well, the box was already in when
Okay.
when they lay the fiber across everyone's yards.
Okay.
But to go from the box to my house, put the box on my house, bury the cord was an hour.
okay.
Any other council communications? All right, hearing none. I don't have a lot today. City manager and I spent the day in Jeff City, testifying on House Bill 909 about proposed landfill to our neighbors. So we spent the day down there, and that was long. We don't know what the outcome will be, obviously. The company that's doing it showed up and was there, so there is a company that's doing it. So we will see what the state legislature decides to do in the coming weeks. So that's all I have. You have anything, Joe?
Yeah, in addition to going to Jeff City today, we are, the mayor and I are, and Councilmember White are going back to Jeff City next week on Tuesday and Wednesday for the MML legislative conference. As part of that conference, we are going to be meeting with some of our local legislators there, and we will try to again impress our wish for their support for HB 909, as well as any some other issues that might be facing our city and other cities in the state. So that's all I've got.
All right, anybody else, anything before we move on? Items for review and discussion. Item A, Annex Canon copier lease.
The annex copier lease expires in April. I'm currently working with the Canon rep who we have and working with their cooperative bid that they have to procure a new lease, which will come to you with an agreement in April.
Any questions? Item B, Fire Department engine change order.
This is the fire engine that we ordered about August of 2021 from Precision Fire Apparatus. It's one of the first large projects I've been involved in, and when I had you guys approve it, I didn't put any contingency funds in there for change orders, which we've had to do just because some things aren't available and we've had them do a few different things. So I'll have that in front of you next week. It's going to just read, because they're still actively working on it. We hope to have it, I'm hoping by the end of the month, but it's very close finally. It's just going to read as a not to exceed $39,000, which is still within the original budget amount that was requested.
Any questions? Item C, Autumn Woods preliminary development plan and amendment development agreement.
Yep, staff is currently reviewing an amended preliminary development plan for the Autumn Woods subdivision off of Markey Road. They're proposing to make some amendments before they begin the second phase of construction. Most significant amendment would be to establish individual water meters for each unit rather than a single master meter that currently serves all proposed 101 townhouse units. A public hearing is currently scheduled for Planning Commission next Tuesday. If the project does remain on the current schedule, an amended preliminary development plan and development maintenance agreement will come before council on March 14th for first reading.
Go ahead.
So I got a dumb question. Can we get them to move the setback back? Can we make them put in like places to park? Because I mean, we couldn't get a fire truck down that street if we had to.
So we have tried to make some improvements to the site plan. Unfortunately, they are very restricted with the floodplain. So essentially, the original plan, there's not any space there to push the buildings any further to the west without encroaching in the floodplain. They still will have some additional on-street parking spaces that will help with some additional off-street parking. We've also increased the width of the trail and the size of the playground, and also have requested some additional larger patios. So we've tried to make some improvements, but the site is pretty constricted with the floodplain.
So I was informed, I think, is a correct terminology, that's a private street, so we can't even put up like no parking signs or anything on there.
As part of the original development maintenance agreement, they are required to sign one side of the street as no parking. That has not yet been completed, but that's something that we will work with the developer on getting that taken care of.
Could you repeat that?
The original development maintenance agreement did include a requirement that the developer was responsible for installing no parking signs on one side of the street.
Similar to traditions.
Yeah.
Which
in this
doesn't
case,
get-
it was a private street, but yeah, that is something that the developer will need to take care of.
So do you think that's a private street until he's done and then he wants to dedicate it to the city, or is it always going to be a private street?
It is platted and proposed to remain a private street. It does not meet public street standards, so it's not something that we would accept as a public street.
All right, thank you.
Whose request was individual water meters?
That was the developer's request.
Okay. Something I fought when I first became fire chief to do that, and they all said no, and now it's coming back to fruition, so.
So does he go back into like existing units and put in new water meters?
Yeah, the proposal is that they will go back in and retrofit those. So there's going to be a two-phased approach before we can officially approve that final plat.
Anybody else? Item D, Traditions Fifth Plat, Public Infrastructure Acceptance.
As with all new subdivisions, as they have completed phase and we accept it, find everything acceptable, we bring it to council for their approval. And so Tradition's fifth plat is ready to be brought forward for acceptance.
Any questions? Item E, Allen and 162nd Water Line Change Order Number 7.
So, as everybody knows, we did a agreement between us and North Point to both build a water line across 162nd Street and up Allen. In the middle of that project, North Point had asked us to change the water line from an 8-inch line to a 12-inch line. And then, so we had a previous change order to bill them for that piping. They also provided the plans for the project. The plans that they submitted and gave to us were virtually unbuildable, so we ended up doing a design build and had to construct it and design it ourselves as we built the project. Because of that, there's overruns on the North Point portion of the job, totaling $407,000 and some change, which they will end up having to pay for that entire amount. So the change order that you'll see is for $407,305.07, bringing the project total to $1.892 million. In the end, the city still is only going to be spending $600,000 on the project for our portion, and North Point will be repaying us $1.2 million. And this will be the final change order as the job is done, and this just cleans up all the quantities.
Any questions? Thank you. Item F, Holmes Pump Station Erosion Improvement.
On Holmes Road, we have a water tank that we receive water from Kansas City at, and then from that tank, we pump it up into our water towers. It has a creek that goes on two sides of that property, and the creek has meanders, and the meanders is actually getting close to our water tank. So we are going to go and fill that in with riprap, put the fence back up, cut some brush, and get that back in shape so that the creek doesn't get to the water tower or the tank.
Any questions? Item G, Y Highway Speed Limit Radar Sign Agreement with MoDOT.
We were requested to work to get a speed radar sign for Y Highway, and we will be, so MoDOT sent me an agreement in order to install that sign. The agreement that you will see will be in draft form. MoDOT now does everything through DocuSign, so they will not actually give you a copy of the agreement until the agreement is executed through DocuSign. So we'll present to you the agreement that we will DocuSign, if that makes sense.
Any questions?
Where's it gonna be at? Placed?
It's going to be right here at the end of Main Street and Y Highway.
I should have read that, but I did, that one I skipped.
Any other questions? Item H, wastewater treatment plant clarifier replacements.
So last year we replaced 3 clarifiers. We have 3 more clarifiers to replace. They're going out for bid right now, and we'll be bringing to you the contract once we receive bids.
Any questions? Item I, Mark Regional Resource Sharing Agreement.
This is kind of an unusual thing is in terms of we do mutual aid agreements throughout for especially for fire, but we also have some, you know, I don't know if they're even formalized agreements that we do for public works and other things. Mark is undertaking a project where they're trying to get kind of a mutual aid agreement on steroids kind of for the entire region, essentially saying that if one community needs help in one area, that the other communities within the Mark's footprint is standing by ready to help if needed. And so there's actually someone here from Mark who is able to answer questions in case you guys do have any questions about that, if you have any specifics you want to go through or anything. But I mean, essentially it's just a nice big mutual aid agreement that I think everybody could benefit from in our region.
Jason White from Mid-America Regional Council. The Regional Resource Sharing Agreement was developed, started pre-pandemic, a bunch of emergency managers looking at gaps between a lot of the standard police, fire, EMS mutual aid agreements that are in place. So sharing during times of emergency, and then we have times where we need sharing and there is not a declared an emergency. That when you don't have a declared an emergency, you've got questions on liability, indemnification. So this is a safety net So if you need to borrow animal control, you need to share brush removal efforts, you need to share public health inspectors, then we've got a written agreement that creates a basic framework. So it's a safety net to fill gaps between the current structures. It's also a foundation kind of document. It starts to spell out that liability, and so as over time you'll see lists, and as other agreements get updated in the region, it'll build on this. So it's not built, in fact, it's built very specifically to not intrude on what you do, as you were discussing with Western Cass and current standing laws and law enforcement. But happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. J, homelessness action discussion.
I'm bringing this to you to see if there is any appetite for us to move forward with a potential homelessness committee, trying to address that issue in our community, and if there is, what kind of participation we would like from the council. There are discussions already taking place, both internally and with other municipalities to try and see regionally what other communities are going to be doing to address this issue. I know Mark's done a study that is, and I think I promised a study to you guys a few months back, but they're still finalizing that study, so it's not 100% done. And it doesn't necessarily include Belton, but it does include our neighboring communities, and so I've been reaching out to those folks consistently to try and make sure that once that study's done, we can at least get to look at it and see where we can piggyback off the efforts that are already taking place in our neighboring communities. Internally, we've got some unique ideas or some things that we're ready to bring forward eventually, that we're still trying to flesh out, that aren't going to solve the problem, but at least maybe we can address it from lots of different issues, whether regarding mental health services and then just other services that are available, and how we address the issue from a policing perspective and that type of thing. So, no, just so you know that there are things in motion, but if you would like to do a committee, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. We can maybe create some sort of a specific intentional plan, because obviously I've told you guys over and over again since I've been here that if you want to make some progress, you be intentional about it, and that's what some of these committees we've already created are meant to do, is to move these things forward.
Right.
I'm for, of course you know this, I'm for a committee. I think, when our businesses are getting affected, I'm for a committee. And when our businesses get affected, when guys sleeping in the bathroom at the middle school, I think it's time that we get involved.
I don't think that guy was homeless, though, was he?
That's what I was told.
No, that's not what I was told, but, no, I mean, we have businesses being affected all the time with homeless population. I mean, unfortunately, I think that's a police matter that the police need to take upon. And my question to, I guess, Chief Lyons is, how's the mental health court that we started a couple years ago going, and has that helped?
I think it's, I've talked to the judge several different times. He feels like it's helping him redirect those people to the mental health, our catchment area, which would be Compass Mental Health Behavioral. And so he would say that it is diverting things from the criminal justice system, but there are situations that are unique to our community. There was a recent study, the the number of homeless, time, 24-hour count. I think that there's some unique things that we might be able to leverage. We got some beautiful organizations inside the city that do tremendous work, but they need a bigger voice, especially with the county, to take up some of the position of services for this population. So I do think that there's some things we can do.
I'd agree with Brett. We do need a committee or a action group or whatever. There is a lot of, not only within staff, but in discussing with the people that Chief Lyons was talking about that work day in and day out with the homeless population. They've got some excellent ideas too, and it'd be appropriate, I think, since they're Belton residents, to be on an action committee.
Well, I think the homeless population or the homeless committee should be not something city-driven as much it is from the, not-for-profits that are already doing stuff. I mean, they might not like some of our decisions that we want to do. I mean, if there's crime involved, I think they should be arrested. I mean, especially if they're breaking into stores or, sneaking into bathrooms in the middle school, whatever it is. I mean, I think, but I think most of that should be done outside of the city, my personal opinion, with other not-for-profits that are going. Not to say that we can't be participating and helping out. I'm just saying it should be an outside organization running it.
I'm in favor of a committee for a variety of reasons Chief Lyons touched on and council members White and Powell touched on.
Angela, you got to speak up, Angela. Go ahead.
I am also in favor of doing a committee. I think that for far too long, Belton has said, let the nonprofits deal with it. And sadly, they haven't been able to make a big impact, partially due to that county issue and the communication. I think having them a part of that committee would be a wonderful thing to be able to help head this into a better direction.
I think that some organizations have done some very good things. I don't want anybody to believe that we don't believe that. But sometimes you need a different, that's not involved in one of those organizations, because they become territorial. And I think someone to bring them all together that's not involved with one, and then start thinking outside the box. Because this is not a Belton issue. This is a regional issue. But sometimes also people get stuck in their own thinking as their solution, and it's a solution, but it's not necessarily a grand solution. So I think we should be able to be involved in spearheading this and bringing these organizations together and start thinking outside the box. So that's mine.
Chris?
I'm for a committee. I think we need to be careful about how the city approaches the whole city getting involved in it, but having a committee, kind of getting everybody together, I think would be great.
I think committee's a great thing. Majority.
I do as well, but I think it needs to be, more than just a city council committee. I think we need to get the faith-based community involved and the other agencies. So it sounds like that's what we want to do. So I would ask that you allow the city manager and myself to create a form of a committee and figure out how big and what's going to be on it, and then bring it back to the city. So
Yeah, we can put together some ideas and bring it back for
Well,
further
back to
discussion.
the
and-
council, not
I
the
mean,
city.
I think Chief Lyons brought it up. I mean, I think the county's got to jump in here somewhere, especially with their health department and some of the other resources they have down there, that they can definitely be a better help in all this stuff.
Absolutely. So
I think all the organizations that are involved in doing something with the homeless needs to have a place at the table.
I agree.
I think anybody that, to me personally, anybody that wants to help the homeless population, wants to be part of the committee, I mean, let's open it up and allow people that. I mean, it takes a village, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of citizens that are concerned too.
Yeah, we have a lot of silos. We have people that are feeding them. We have people that are concerned about their housing, people that are concerned about their mental health, people that are concerned about getting them enough blankets and a warm sleeping bag. We need to all be in the room to make one focus towards really solving the problem instead of the issues that the problem has caused.
So with that being said, send me your thoughts and ideas about who you want involved.
By when?
Midnight.
Tomorrow.
In an hour? Week, 2 weeks. Not long, let's get this going if we're gonna do it, so. Anybody else? Item K, recycling.
This isn't a loaded topic at all.
Yeah, go figure.
So we do have some preliminary numbers from our current trash service provider for curbside recycling program. The program would potentially cost are pitching. It would potentially cost our residents $5 a month for every other week curbside recycling, and that would include the cart costs. If we were to try to do the cart costs ourselves, that would be more than they would do it without the cart cost for $1 less, but it wouldn't cost us more than $1 a month per resident for us to try to do the carts on our own. So that I would recommend if we do go down this path that we do allow them to do the carts, we could do it every week for $1 more. So if we wanted to go to $6, we could do weekly curbside recycling. If we did decide to go down this path, they would ask us for a 5-year contract. Essentially what they would do is they would take our current contract and tear it up, and we would have a new 5-year agreement for trash and recycling services. They are asking for that commitment because they're estimating they're going to need to purchase a couple of trucks, and until those trucks are in, as we've seen with our major equipment purchases, they'd have to lease some trucks in the interim because it'd probably take them 12 to 18 months to get new trucks in, and also add some staff to handle this increased load. And so to spread that out, they're asking for that 5-year commitment from us if we decide to go down that path. So that gives us a starting point, I believe. It gives us something to consider as a community, as a council. I did talk to him a little bit about drop-off point type recycling. He did. He, and maybe it's a conflict of interest, but he did discourage that. He said most communities have gone away from the curbside or from the drop-off point recycling because of the fact you have to staff it, and otherwise it becomes a big dumping spot. And where to put it sometimes can be an issue. But he said most communities that got into that drop-off spot have gone away from that, especially in our region. So that said, if we were to put this out to bid, I have seen some numbers on recent bids, and I think that's I'd be shocked if we got it much lower than that, even if we were able to put it out to bid. So these aren't actually these are pretty aggressive pricing, in my opinion. So I'd like to see if you guys are interested in me bringing that back for a potential action item.
I did say anything.
Oh,
I will in a minute.
We want your opinion. I was
Oh.
just starting around the corner.
I like the idea of recycling, but I'd like to see the cost when we increase water, because we're going to be increasing water rates because we're going to get an increase. I think you said that a month and a half ago.
We have not decided on water rates yet. We're still working through that. Yes, we are going to get an increase on our costs of water. Yeah, and so if we pass those along to the consumer, then yes, that would increase our rates.
The cost from Kansas City for bulk.
Right, the cost from Kansas City for water, and our and frankly the sewer costs for the section of our community where we have to purchase that service is also going up.
So I'd like to be able to see all those figures together,
Mm-hmm.
and what we can do about those figures.
Rob?
Oh, I'm definitely for recycling. I just remember, seems like forever ago, but it's only less than 2 years ago, it only lost by 1 vote here. And I'd like, speaking of figures though, I'd still like to see the comparison of this versus a centralized drop-off center, because it seems manned. I agree. I mean, maybe it's not manned 24 hours a day, but it can be locked up 24 hours a day unless the guy's or a woman is there to monitor it. So yes, I'm definitely for this, and it did fail by 1 vote when it was more expensive than this. So this is encouraging.
Angela?
I do definitely like this pricing a lot better. But I would like to also see the possibility, I know we had talked about possibly looking into the allotments and possibly being able to do something with that to offset any kind of cost or anything else, especially with water and sewer just continuing to go up and pass down. So
this something we're gonna put on the ballot, or how are we gonna decide?
It would be an item that the council could decide. I mean, it's not
Totally up to
necessarily a
us.
ballot issue.
Entirely up to us.
That's right.
Chris?
I'm for the recycling. I worry about the $5 or $6 it's going to cost the citizens a month. I've pushed this since the beginning, and I think we have to do this. If we don't do it, we're going to be forced to down the road, and I'd rather get a head start on it. I've talked to Lee Summit out there, and I'm going to take a tour of their place that they got, and I believe it's contracted. I'm not 100% on that. I also know that they've started a construction recycling drop-off, and it's going to be one of the only ones in the country. They're way ahead of their time. There's a bunch of cities that's gone out there and toured their facility, and the construction thing is supposed to be done in the next 3 or 4 months, I believe. So before we start just doing a curbside pickup, I want to research all of our resources to figure out what's the best option. Because I worry about charging the people more money. It's easy to recycle and just charge the people. It's hard. The hard thing to do is to figure out how to recycle to where we don't have to charge the citizens. And I'd rather try to do that versus just, hey, it's easy, just charge them. It's another $5 or $6. Well, the way your water bills, the way your gas bills, the way your electric bills have gone up, we can't just keep raising everybody's rates just because it's the easiest thing to do. I want to find the best way and the best way for the citizens where they don't have to cost, it won't cost them that much. So before we just, I'm good checking into it, but I want to check all our possibilities before we just step into it. So that's where I'm at.
Can you clarify what construction recycling is?
So the construction recycling is sheetrock. They're going to take concrete. They're going to grind up the concrete. I'm not sure exactly, but he said they were going to take the concrete, recycle it, grind it up, all sorts of construction stuff.
Okay.
And it's going to be one of the only ones in the country, from what I understand. So like all the other cities have toured this place to kind of see how they're doing it and how they're going to make it work. And to me, that's a big thing right there too. I mean, my industry that I'm in, we recycle automobiles. We're one of the only industries in the country that leaves we leave a negative carbon footprint. We recycle our oil, we recycle our antifreeze. Every car that we crush goes and gets shredded and recycled. So there's money to be made. I just want to figure out the easiest way to where we don't have to charge the citizens. That's the easiest thing to do, is say, hey, we're going to recycle, but we're going to charge you $5 a month. It's the hard thing is to figure out a way to recycle where we don't have to charge people. And that's what I'd rather check into. And there's ways of doing it, so.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, they were requesting a 5-year contract, whether we chose biweekly or weekly, correct? Yes. Okay, thanks.
That's it?
What's your thoughts?
Yes, no?
Yes, no, maybe. You're starting to sound like James now.
Let's go.
I think it is a service the citizens want. This pricing is competitive compared to the last time we asked them. And there won't be the issue of, we propose it at 4 and it comes back at 7, roughly. I'm forgetting the numbers from last summer, but if this is where we're at and this is what we communicate and we get resident feedback that this is acceptable, that would be great.
Now, just to give you a little bit of clarification, and I don't know what will happen to the rate. I'm not saying it would go up to 7. He said he's promised to keep us to this if we can decide in the next couple months. He wants us to get to move down the line. Otherwise, he's going to have to rebid it. And he thinks that it would take about 2 to 3 months for implementation. So it could. I mean, if we approved it in the end of March, he could have it up and running in June. Is what he said.
Okay. I mean, that was before your time, but when we sent out the ETC resident survey, the pricing was pretty different than
Right.
what ended up being GFL's bid, so.
That's where I'm going with this, is I don't want us to, we can look around and try to find some other options. I'm not saying we can't do that. We can, and we have some time to do that. But I also don't want us to wait so long on this, that if we decide we want to try to go down this path, I want us to capture the good pricing. Not saying it'll go away. I don't have any knowledge that it will, but this isn't an evergreen quote, so it's.
Well, guess what? I'm not a recycler, but I voted for it last time because that's what the survey told me that the citizens wanted. I think as much as some of the people here, and everybody was fairly new back then, that was a valid survey, and that's what citizens told me they wanted, so that's why I voted yes for it last time, and I will vote yes for it again this time. The thing I will tell you is I think we left $1.80 in there to keep buying the buckets. So if we ever do bring back recycling, we didn't have to go out and charge a lot of money. So if my recollection is correct from 2 years ago, we left that $1.80 in there so we could build up a fund to buy those buckets without charging the residents in the future. Now, if we start it this summer, we might have to charge something if we do our own buckets, but I'm for it. My wife yells at me every day because we don't have recycling. She's a recycler, I'm not, but she loves it. She thinks it's good. She's the one that washes out all the cans and bottles and does all that stuff. But I think the citizens have spoke before, and I mean, I still hear it all the time from other people. I can't believe we don't recycle in Belton.
Likewise, I will support recycling, curbside recycling. I think the drop-off site, I don't know, we'll have to get some numbers on it and see. I don't know if that's feasible. I know several want to look at that, so let's do that as well. Brings numbers back. So.
Mayor, I was going to add something. I think one of the things that happened last time with that $4 was every other week. And that's what you're talking about now, is now $5 every other week. And we went to every week, and I would tell you this, that we can't figure out when the first full week of the month is. I'm trying to figure out how you're going to figure out when people every other week is. But that's all I see on Facebook. Is this the first full week of the month or not? I mean,
I have a simple solution. Allison will come up with a calendar for that.
calendar Allison, yeah.
I mean, you'll never get that perfect. To be fair, the 1 week out of a month is a lot less of a routine than if you're doing it every other week. And I've actually seen it in other communities where it's every other week and it works pretty well. So it's not. I think it won't be perfect.
I think the recyclers want every other week just because there's not enough every week for them to pick up.
I think if you train people that are interested, you have to be interested and want to utilize the service to be trainable, right? But if you can train people who are interested in doing it, you'll find that you can recycle more than you realize, and your trash will go down quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've seen people that actually have more recycling on a weekly basis than they do trash.
When I see some people in like my neighborhood, they'll have 2 or 3 trash cans. If they do recycling, they might only have 1 now and have a recycling. Their cost for trash actually will go down. But can we actually get a cost for weekly?
For recycling?
Uh-huh.
It's $1 more.
Huh?
It's $6 for weekly.
$1 more?
It's $1 more for weekly.
Heck yeah.
All right.
It was $6.80 last time. Come on, that's 80 cents cheaper.
All right, then.
All right. Item L, MoDOT safety grant.
Every year we come to City Council and we have to get approval for the grants that we've been approved from MoDOT. A hazardous moving grant has been granted to us for $15,750, and a saturation patrol grant was granted to us for $10,300. These are overtime grants that police officers sign up for, and we use these to hit high traffic areas where we have problems with speeding, or we have red light running or aggressive driving. We've also used it for some of our drone stuff that we've done on the highway where we've gone after aggressive drivers. And so we're getting these grants. This is normally the time of the year. We'll bring that next city council, and we'll have to turn around fast and send it back in. The state doesn't give us much time at all.
Any questions? Item M, weather siren presentation.
This comes with pictures.
All right, here we go. We do this every year. It's our outdoor storm warning system. We have 17 sirens. 7 of them this year were transformed over to message capable. And that message, we put these in high traffic areas where the parks have ball fields, where we need to reach those people and tell them to seek shelter. We have a grant award we talked about earlier tonight for the 8th one at Wallace Park. We have 2 control computers with encoders at PD and fire. Historically, the system was activated by calling dispatch in the past, and so but now we can actually, we also have apps on our phones. There's 5 of us that have that. So if all of us are on vacation and one is left in the city, or we're in vacation, we can actually activate those remotely if we need to. We have a contracted system too. This is the warning area for our city, and it just shows the location of 17 storm sirens. One of those, which is over on the west side or the left side of that circle, is Loch Lloyd. It is in our area. This is a map just showing coverage of those different sirens. You can see that over there to the left of the screen, the area that would be Loch Lloyd. That is in our system, but I'll talk about that in a little bit later, about who maintains that. This is our system, and supposed to activate here. If the Weather Service issues a polygon, and that purple square is a polygon, if that was a tornado, that would activate our entire system. And you can see the little modular siren that's actually warning the citizens about that. The software system that we use for this is Command 1. It's actually linked to the National Weather Service. They're the ones that issue polygons through their AccuWeather system. And so that's what actually activates it. And like I said before, our maintenance system, we get regular updates. It tests those sirens and batteries and backups every day, and we get messages about those. So we know when we do it every day, because we never know when we may need it. We have one FEMA shelter in the city. That was a shelter that the Belton High School got a grant for, and they actually beefed up the structure of their one of their gyms. It holds somewhere in the neighborhood of approximately 1,516 people. Citizens may enter that shelter even with service dogs, service animals. BEMA management, we would actually activate that. We have a key, and we also have controllers with our people, and they would actually go there and open up that facility and then give instructions for it. We have 6 private shelters in the city: Lazy Acres, Crown Park, Plaza Acres, Springdale, Lake, and South Fork. It has one as well. And Progressive Rail also has one that they added during the construction, but it's not required. During this year, we've turned on the voice message system on, like I talked about before. We secured a grant for the additional siren that we're putting at Wallace Park. Loch Lloyd, we had a conversation with them in regards to them purchasing a service agreement for their siren because we were identifying problems with it and then notifying them, but we wanted them to maintain the service contract and take that off our plate, and they have, and they've been great to deal with. We're working, as you may know, we have emergency management annexes for different types of emergencies. One of the biggest one we're working on right now with Public Works and other entities is debris management. And that would be if we had trees down, we had telephone poles, how would we clear the streets? How would we get rid of debris? And so that's one of our major pushes right now. And we're doing this in a timely manner because National Severe Weather Awareness Week is March 7th through the 14th this year. And we're encouraging all citizens to be aware of severe weather. Always you can get an app on your phone. You can get a radio that self-activates if there is an incident. So just some other things that we felt like we wanted to take this opportunity to tell you about was that we have in the BEMA, Belton Emergency Agency, we have 10 part-time volunteers. They participated in 10 events this year for 338 man-hours. They were participated in the 150th anniversary. They participate in storm siren tests on occasion when we're really testing a specific area. They helped out with the St. Patty's Day Parade, Summerfest, police standoff. That was a critical incident that we did with somebody that was involved in very serious crime. They actually self-dispatched. I've never had anybody volunteer to come hold down barricades. They took police officers off those positions and were able to put them in the neighborhood where we needed them. And if you come to the award ceremony that we're having March 2nd, those two individuals will be recognized. The homecoming parade, they helped with Fall Fest, Halloween patrol. We actually put police officers and other people out on the streets on Halloween to pass out candy, and we use it as a community event. And Veterans Day parade, and of course the Christmas parade and the tree lighting. We had 3 exercises that we did with them this year, one of which was searching an area for a missing child. And so we continue to do online training, storm spotter training, and emergency vehicle operations, excuse me. But that's it, and if you have any questions.
Go ahead.
I recall, and maybe my recollection is not quite good, but I think last year I asked about the tornado sirens, and that at ball fields they may say seek shelter, but
Yes.
There's nothing as of last year that would tell them where to go to seek shelter.
In those instances, they're taught they're told to leave the area, and the instructions that we would be putting out is that get in your car and leave the area. That would be the fastest thing to get out of the area.
So it wouldn't be to go to the high school.
Probably not. That high school is probably for people that are citizens of this community. And a lot of those citizens are probably ones that know they don't have a basement in their house, or they have some type of conditions where they might need help getting into shelter.
I have some concerns with just saying get in your car and go, because they're kind of taught. Don't be driving out and around when the tornado warnings are going off. Go seek shelter. But we're just telling them to go get in a car and not providing them an opportunity to find where shelter's at. And I had that concern last year. So.
Well, our main message is for self-awareness and radio.
That's going to be physically impossible to tell out-of-towners where to go because they don't know where they're going.
You tell them to go to high school and they're from
Yeah.
North Kansas City or...
That was just a concern I had last year, so.
Okay.
Expressed again.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you.
Any questions? All right. I'd entertain a motion to enter an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.1, and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Richardson,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes.
Pryan,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes.